Bienvenue tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. I'm Mark Owen. In this edition, Brussels still in shock after the terror attacks. Meanwhile, in Morocco, the authorities there say if Europe used its tactics, the risk from jihadists could be reduced. Morocco's battling against the threat of Islamic State within its own borders by taking the word to the streets and, importantly, to the mosques. Equally, Morocco under threat from Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. 20 terror cells have been identified and dismantled by Moroccan intelligence over the past year. And while around 2,000 Moroccans may have gone to Syria to join the jihad, they are monitored and those who return quickly jailed. Morocco says the lack of decisive action on this issue in Belgium and here in France has in part created the current terror crisis. Our reports by Sarah Doublier and Jean-Marie Lemaire.
Agadir, this popular tourist destination in the south of Morocco known for its tolerance. But recent events have seen civil society on alert over a rise in religious conservatism. Last July, 2 Moroccan women were assaulted in the nearby town of Inisgan. They ended up being arrested by the local authorities. Their supposed crime? Wearing skirts at the weekly marketplace. Women's rights activist Fatima Lafdali helped with their defense. She says there's been a disturbing shift in people's mentality.
In the 70s and 80s, women wearing dresses, miniskirts or frocks was normal, and there just weren't any problems. But now, there are problems, and mentalities have changed. There's something like an Islamist ideology that's growing.
An attack on a suspected homosexual. Calls to murder actors taking part in a film about prostitution. The skirt incident was just one of several controversies that made the headlines. Many Moroccans took to the streets in protest, seeing the Inisgan affair as a sign of a regressive trend.
People don't realize how free Moroccan women used to be. Are they suggesting our parents weren't Muslims? That our parents weren't observant? There used to be tolerance, but today you don't see that anymore.
Morocco is a country of cultural diversity. This aspect of Morocco is not going to change. We're not going to let them change it just because there are some supporters of the Islamic State group in the region.
And yet, defenders of civil liberties are losing ground to the Islamic State's propaganda. Poverty, unemployment, lack of education. The fundamentalists attract more and more young people deprived of prospects. Nearly 2,000 Moroccans have joined the jihadist organization, and the authorities are taking radicalization very seriously. The Council of Ulema's mission is to closely monitor what is preached in the nation's mosques. Imams are told to keep King Mohammed VI, the commander of the faithful, as their main reference and to use religious arguments to counter the temptation of extremism.
Those people who go off to Syria, they have some arguments. They think they're on the right path. They have proof, they have verses, they have hadiths, etc. Well, it's up to us to explain to people, to everyone, that they're ignorant. It's our duty to show the right path.
Beni Makada is one of Tangier's poorest neighborhoods and a breeding ground for radicalized young men leaving for jihad. Mustafa Hamdan is the imam of the Misnana district mosque. As usual, a representative of the Ulema Council gives him guidelines before his Friday sermon.
In your next speeches, you should talk of the fundamentals of Islam, starting with the concept of tolerance in the Muslim religion and how to behave when confronted with other religions and beliefs. These are the fundamental ideas of tolerance inspired by the life of the Prophet. We supervise imams both directly and indirectly. They receive a training that gives them communication tools, enabling them to talk to people of all social categories: young people, women, intellectuals, and illiterate people alike. Our sermons talk about subjects related to Islam's values and tolerance.
Mustafa, the imam, tries to convey these values every Friday in this small neighborhood mosque. His sermon follows the state officials' instructions, addressing tolerance and coexistence in Islam. The imam speaks out against the ignorance of those who commit violent acts in the name of religion. Whether it be in isolated neighborhoods or in the city's main mosques. However, according to Mustafa, religious authorities have limited power to fight indoctrination.
In my experience, I think the young people who are lured by the Islamic State don't come to the mosques. Their minds are already made up on the subject, and they socialize with groups of people who indoctrinate them to better control them. We try our best to reassure the parents, and we hope God will help us save our children.
Many parents, in cities as well as remote villages, are faced with their children leaving for the Middle East. Ali Abashi is one of them. Following his son's death in Syria at the age of 26, this distressed father is left with many unanswered questions.
When his mother was told he'd been killed, she couldn't take it anymore. And she died just over 3 weeks later. I had to go through 2 funerals in 24 days. It's a big problem. These young people going off to get killed when we as parents worked so hard. We give everything to raise them. And they go over there to die.
Most of those who joined the Islamic State come from towns in the north of Morocco, near the Spanish enclaves. The extent of the problem has pushed these 2 journalists to investigate the matter.
This immigration to Syria is a growing trend. It's very serious in this region, Fnadak, Matil and the surrounding areas. And local authorities find it hard to understand why all these young 20 to 30-year-olds are leaving.
Hassan and Yassin often know the grieving families personally. Many of those who left were neighbors or even childhood friends.
Reda. His name is Reda ben Mohammed el-Houari. He's dead. He died in Syria.
Like most of the young people who take off to fight the jihad, Reda did not tell his family why he was leaving.
We played together when we were kids. We were inseparable. He had so many friends in the neighborhood, even Hamza here. As we grew up, we all changed. That's destiny. We can't do anything about it. It's just the way it is. Perhaps he was indoctrinated, but in the end, he only did what he wanted to do.
They have several arguments to convince them. They often tell them that when they die, they will go to heaven. Some even promise that their whole family will go to heaven, and they just lose their minds and they go.
Indoctrination is not done only online. Salafist preachers find an audience even on the streets. This amateur video, shot last October during a demonstration in Tétouan, shows a fundamentalist calling openly for holy war. Some Salafists, such as Omar al-Hadoushi, have a more balanced view. This sheikh, who broadcasts his sermons online, was imprisoned for 9 years following his alleged involvement in the 2003 Casablanca attacks. Pardoned by the king, he now openly criticizes those who joined the Islamic State, but does not condemn the jihad.
The Syrian people have the right to fight jihad. If they cannot defend themselves on their own, then the country closest to them has the right to defend them. But those who are far away, like Morocco and others, we tell them to stay at home.
Morocco has been on high alert ever since the appearance of the Islamic State. The authorities are wary of jihadists returning from the war zones. An elite intelligence unit was even created last March. Its mission? Neutralizing all potential terrorist threats on Moroccan soil. To them, there is no compromise when it comes to security.
We're on maximum alert.
Since when?
We always have been.
Moroccan intelligence officials regularly circulate details of arrests conducted among jihadist groups. Since last March, more than 20 cells affiliated with the Islamic State have been dismantled. When firearms are seized, the authorities show no tolerance.
People who bring firearms into Morocco pay a heavy price.
What do you mean?
I mean, they face at least 30 years in prison and some even a life sentence.
Tough legislation, in addition to highly effective surveillance systems, Morocco is regularly praised abroad for its efficient intelligence services. In fact, according to the head of this new unit, no Moroccan jihadist has yet escaped the country's vigilance.
When they come back, they're taken straight to court to be sentenced. That's not the case, for example, in several European countries. And that's a real security problem. I've spoken with colleagues, I don't want to mention which country, concerning these people coming back from war zones. They say that as long as they don't have information on who may be affiliated with the Islamic State group or some other organization, they can't do anything. That's a big problem.
Thanks to its security policies, Morocco has avoided the turbulence of recent Arab uprisings, and so far, it has not suffered any attacks by the Islamic State. But with its ties to the West and its participation in the fight against the jihadists, the country is also at the top of the list of those under threat.
Sarah Doublier, our reporter, is here in the studio. Sarah, first of all, thank you very much for your report, a real insight into the scene there in Morocco. Between 1,500 and 2,000 Moroccans have gone to join the jihad, and of course this creates its own threat in itself. Morocco, the third largest provider of jihadist fighters, which suggests there is definitely an issue there. And of course, if you look at what happened in Paris and in Brussels, the link back to Morocco, very clear. So tell us more about what Morocco is doing to prevent any attacks happening on its soil.
There's three levels of the Moroccan method to struggle against terrorism. The first one is, of course, the security level with all this law very strong against all the terrorism affairs, but also with the laws against the weapons are very, very harsh, so you can have a jail time very, very long if you're just caught with a weapon.
So it's that kind of threat, of course. People knowing that if they were to bring weapons into the country, they would face something like 20 years plus in prison. That's it.
It's kind of a preventive law that prevent people and dissuade maybe people to commit attacks. And there's also another part of this method, which is intelligence, first-hand information grasped by a local authority in the neighborhoods in Morocco, which is a method really simple. These local authority agents are going talk with people. Did you see that guy? We have doubt about him. And there's a cultural information habit there in Morocco. So people, civilian, can go to authority and tell, I have doubt about this guy or the guy.
The jihadist message can come via the internet. It can also come via mosques. Now, Morocco has this very interesting method of making sure that imams are basically on side, are basically spreading the right message and helping to find when radicalization might be happening. Tell us more about that.
Since 2003 terror attack in Casablanca, Morocco did aware about the big issue of the religious speech in the mosque. So they made a big reform inside the mosque and the imam formation. So now the speech are really
kind of monitored, I suppose. They're looking at what is said. Is it actually telling them what they should be saying? Is that it?
Yeah, they want to spread the tolerance message, and they want to say inside and outside Morocco that Morocco has a pattern of really tolerant model of Islam.
Okay, so maybe Europe could take many lessons from Morocco. Sarah, thank you very much for your analysis. Thank you most of all for your report from Morocco. Sarah Doublé, of course, working with Jean-Marie Lemaire. And thank you for watching this edition of Reporters. Stay with us here on France 24.